this episode. So what happened in this episode? So of course, the heir of the throne, the next heir, the king is dead. So little Jaehaerys basically got his head chopped off by Blood and Cheese. Which we also saw what happened to them, which I thought was interesting. King Aegon, of course, loses his fucking shit and basically is like declaring war, basically starting to act out on his own. You have Kristen Cole, too, in this episode that is starting
Unhinged.
to become that and starting to plot in his own way, too, because as you'll see, and it really infuriated me. I never thought I would hate Kristen Cole as much as I did in this show.
You hate him now,
yeah. And Alicent is like a wreck. She blames herself, suggesting the gods are punishing her. Basically, Aemon finds the hidden tunnel for Blood and Cheese. You had Rhaenyra absolutely rail on Daemon, thinking that Daemon made her look weak. And then you had Otto basically exploit the death of the little king by doing a big funeral, and then ultimately we wrapped it all up with with basically Rhaenyra still in mourning, but this was this episode was kind of hard because it was a whole lot of filler that had nothing to do with the story, although it was interesting. There wasn't much to it. And then we also had Otto and Aegon have a falling out, and Kristen Cole basically becomes Hand of the King. So that was one of the biggest things that happened in this episode. Like I said, I really didn't care for it too much, guys. I'm curious to see what you thought about it, Steve. Oh, but we also saw too, after Kristen Cole becomes Hand of the King, he basically forces himself on Alicent, who basically was like, no, we can't do this anymore because that's what happened.
We're starting to veer into like more traditional Game of Thrones territory.
Yes.
Last season we had a very focused plot with Alicent, Rhaenyra, and then this very very focused on like moving towards this
civil war,
moving towards the war as we go back and forth between like this tension of Rhaenyra is going to be on the throne, but not everybody's on board with that. And not everybody respects Viserys' decision. Now we're splitting up, even though we have two sides of a war here. There's a lot of plots that are splitting up. It was a little. Obviously, you get from a big high episode 1. Even if I personally think they kind of like on the Blood and Cheese scene because which I think could have been done better. Talking about I won't repeat anything. I will just say that that's one of those. If I recall, it's one of those things that's very striking in the book. It's a very
it's brutal. It's brutal.
What it is it's a red wedding type scene. It's one of those things that that's there. It's there that people reference, and so obviously you're going to switch around things or details if you need to film for whatever, but to kind of really just ignore the real sort of what's it called? The strangers of it, a full-blown invasion horror movie scene. It seems like it seems like a bit of a cop-out. But I did like the scene with Otto and Aegon.
I was just going to say that was the best scene of the episode.
It's such an interesting contrast, and a lot of people have also brought up online is what the contrast between Otto and Aegon, and then how Tywin acted around Joffrey.
Right.
Because Tywin had so much more control over Joffrey.
Right.
Whenever they spoke, it was very clear.
That was out of character for Otto, technically, in the book and in the show. That was out of character for him to act out like that.
Yeah, scream.
Yeah, and I think, and one of the things that is because both Tywin and Otto, very cunning, very politically, but Otto does not have the ruthlessness.
Exactly.
Of Tywin. Yep. I think, in fact, he balks. For one of the big things is he doesn't like Daemon because of how bloody Daemon gets.
Mm-hmm.
Tywin's most famous accomplishment as a young man is the Reigns of Castamere.
The Reigns of Castamere,
right.
And the thing is, that is a decision I don't think Otto would ever have the stomach to do something.
Hell no.
He would,
no way.
And not because he has any sort of conscience, is because he could not deal with the reputation that would
Right.
the what it would put on his reputation, whereas Tywin owns up to something like that.
Which was good because that whole scene where they hung well, first of all, I did you guys like that they caught blood and cheese? That to me
They caught
personally, I
both
did.
of them, but they caught
I really
one.
didn't care. I was actually fine with it because nothing ever happens to them in the book. They kind of just disappear.
Disappear.
So it's
True.
kind of, I thought it was okay
really-
that you saw that what happened to them.
It was interesting though.
But then
like,
Otto
right
gets
after,
mad because he's like, you hung the rat catchers. You hung
wrote-
all of
you
them.
hung all of them, and he goes
Right.
like, like, well, at least one of them was guilty, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
I get it. He's playing his character, but it was so weird to just be like, damn, like you got both of them like in the same episode.
It's true though, because again, Otto, like his whole point was that like we got you so much sympathy, like which is
Right.
that cynical point. It's like we got you so much sympathy with your dead son. Like we got everybody on your side because now we all think, oh, Renea kills children. Like we gotta
Right.
we have people on your side. We have momentum, and then now you just randomly kill a whole bunch of innocent people, and people are gonna get
And I want to add to this too. It's going to be
pissed.
interesting that this is going to happen because even though you saw this happen with Otto and he basically put that funeral on, it will have an effect later on in the show. And a lot of people are saying, well, what will it have? Because when Rhaenyra, spoilers our audience, when Rhaenyra does take over King's Landing, and she does, the people are not with her. And this is probably going to be one of the direct results because of that. They
Yeah.
don't ever explain that in the book, but that was one of the things. Like, even though I said this episode was a lot of filler, it was a lot of filler that made sense, that actually
But they
really
put-
will
they-
fit into the story.
In that funeral, they laid it. You can see the seeds that they're planting.
Right.
It's basically like the shaming of Cersei, where they're just going like, look what Rhaenyra has done, child murderer, and you know what I mean. Come on, say it with me, child murderer,
Child
right?
murderer,
She's
yeah.
murdering, and the crowd is crying, and they're going along with it, and then you're seeing a little child's body with it literally his head sewn back, and it's like so Otto at that point he will win in the end if the show goes how it's going to go, but it is kind of like filler with a purpose, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some characters that are going to be, I think, going to play into the show a little bit more. We had Adam, the shipwright guy, and Alan. And I think these guys, and I'm just making a prediction, I think these guys are going to be Dragon Seeds. I think that's who these guys are going to be and why they're bringing them up in the show right now as part of being close to House Valyrian. Also, too, I didn't think the Smith was going to come back, and his name was Hugh. And you know who, then Hugh the Hammer, you know who that was, right, Steve? That was one of the guys that
right.
slays the dragon.
I wasn't even
Now-
thinking that.
That was one of the guys that comes and slays the dragon. Spoilers our audience in the dragon pit. When Rhaenyra actually comes and basically governs the city, there is a huge, gigantic, like,
Yeah.
we'll see if it happens in the show, but there's basically a riot in which they kill all the dragons. And it was said that there was a man named Hugh the Hammer that slayed
That's
one of the
like-
dragons.
Yeah, he like smashed it. So I mean, like, what's the point of having this blacksmith have a character develop? In the
Right.
show?
So I
Do
just
something.
that's they're stretching it out because a lot of people keep asking me like, Rob, how many seasons do you think this is going to be? I think it's going to go like 5 at least because if they can stretch out all this. I mean, it was a lot of just nothing. I mean, it was a lot of stuff that they just added, but it worked. But it just went on for a long time, and I was like, if
They
they
said
do it like this,
yeah,
this is definitely gonna go on.
you can definitely see 5. They did say that they had HBO gave them room for 5 seasons at maximum. They want to go 5 seasons, so I mean, the pace of this episode, you could definitely see it.
I never thought I would hate Kristen Cole so much either. Like, even in the book, he is called the Kingmaker, but he's still kind of like you don't
What do you
really
mean?
hate him so much because he's like
Oh, he's tight.
he's okay, but in the show, man, I can't stand when he went up to the brother, the Eric brother, and he's just like, basically self-projected. Was like, you're the one that broke all your vows. You're the one, and he's basically fucking Allison.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying he's tight. I love him in the show too, dude. he's just
absolutely
totally
gross. And when he throws the hand, and this happened, but not in the way like you saw it in the show. But he does become Hand of the King. And what I think is awesome about it is I love the whole just that face he gives when he looks at it on the ground. He's like,
yeah.
that look was just grand. The look of like,
funny.
oh, me? Like, you're gonna put me in charge, sir?
Yeah, when he said that, I love that.
And he's like, my hand will be an iron fist.
my hand, and he's all like, my hand. He's like, what? Like, don't say
It's
that,
so
dude.
interesting how they're painting Aegon. And like Luke, you were talking about how the with Otto and Aegon, this is a completely different Aegon. Because I know you remember us talking about the Dance of Dragons before. We never mentioned to you that Aegon was like a charismatic, he tried to help the people. There was none of that in the essential history. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how they're writing him as this, like, he's trying his best. Because you had the scene where he was crying
Mhm.
and Alicent didn't go to him, and everyone's upset because of everything that's happened with their parents and their kids, and they see the path that's in front of them now. And I just thought it was a really interesting scene to have Aegon cry like that, because spoilers, our audience, he is as funny as it is. Him and Rhaenyra do suffer the most out of the war. Like, it's almost like a war for everybody else except them, because Rhaenyra is in mourning for a lot of her kids, because spoilers, our audience, this is war. She's going to bury a lot more of her kids
Yeah.
in the future here. For Aegon, Aegon is, I don't know, I don't want to spoil it for people, but Aegon is like, he's a little fucking tough shit. He thinks he's tough, and basically, when the first battle happens, it doesn't end very well for him. And the reason Aemon is becoming, and you saw the scene with Aemon and in his favorite prostitute, which was weird because that never was in the book either, and that was kind of random. You see him starting to take more of a prominent position because he will be like the Joffrey, he will basically be almost like the Mad.
This is gonna be the guy. Yeah, he's like
Yeah,
the guy.
this is going to be the
behind
guy
show.
that you're going to fear throughout the whole show, because this is the guy that goes absolutely mad. Although I want to know, Steve, do you think it's going to be this whore he marries, or it's going to be the Baratheon girl that he's supposed
It's
to marry?
gonna be it's the Baratheon. I don't think, because this was like more so like, it was weird. I was like, wait, what the hell's going on
Right.
here? But this is more so like, yeah, like, hey, my mom is not a mom, so I'm looking for attention, like, from a motherly figure. More so, dude, I don't know. I feel like they're gonna go opposite, where he's gonna be in control of himself, because he finds the gold coin that was dropped by like Blood and Cheese when he's going in that entrance where they came through.
Mhm.
And he goes and he looks and stares at that coin, and I was like, wait, why is he looking at it? And I like went back and I was like, oh, that's the coin. And he's going to use that as motivation to be like, never again will this happen on his watch, kind of thing. Like, he's going to take over. So I don't know if he's going to be insane. And they've been telling him, like, I think, doesn't Otto go to him like, dude, you need to control yourself.
You need to control your impulses.
Even the whore was like, hey, when you guys like lose your temper, it's,
You lose your temper, yeah.
it's we suffer the most, and he's kind of listening to that. So,
and that's going to play again to when I keep telling my audience, dragons are not good. The dragons are what make people suffer. The dragons are, like Luke once famously said on the show, the nuclear weapons of the Targaryens. Because they have those dragons, they can oppress anybody.
You do whatever.
So that was basically the whole episode in a nutshell. I liked it, but I didn't like it at the same time. I just don't like all filler, no killer. But the other thing too, again, we had Daemon, which I thought was so weird. Again, they're pushing his character so strange, because you had Rhaenyra lay into him. You made me look weak, and it's like, really? You just chopped your the opposition's heir's head off. That doesn't say you're weak to me. That says you're fucking ruthless. Yeah. And it just I don't know, because I guess in a way it is going to be right, because Rhaenyra is going to look and get blamed ultimately for the kid's death, and it is Daemon. But it's just Daemon, man, is just so much of a badass. It's just weird to see how much he's played kind of off in the show. Like, he's played off a lot.
They're just going like, we'll come back to him. He's off. You see him. Daemon is doing Daemon things. Because where did he go? Harrenhal, right?
He went to Harrenhal. Which, for those of you who don't know, he goes to Harrenhal, and he does disappear in the book too, because he does do a lot of stuff that you don't know what's going on. Because eventually he'll end up with a woman, and you're like, who the hell is this? Which is going to be interesting, because I'm thinking they're going to make that the worm. I think they're going to make that her.
Oh, really? It's going to be her?
I do. Because remember, it's one of the dragon seeds, but I just can see it just being her for some reason again. I don't know why. Hopefully I'm wrong. It'd be weird. Hopefully I'm wrong. That. But there's going to definitely be a new, but that could be seasons later.
Mm-hmm.
But Luke, did you like the episode overall, for someone who's never really been into Game of Thrones? Or how?
I would say it's, again, it's on par with what I've come to expect with Game of Thrones. So there was good acting. And I think I won't be able to figure it out until, like, what's the word? until the end of this series, but I for the end of this season, I'm curious to see how, like, now focusing on just the then and now will help, because I did think that first season might have suffered by having so many time jumps that we didn't get enough time.
People
There
are
was-
still upset about the character change. I kind of am
Yeah.
too. I kind of like the other girl better as Rhaenyra.
I because I get where they were coming from, because it's like we need to set up all this stuff to get to the war, because like the war is the whole point. I will say this: maybe they made the mistake of doing all the maybe we should have done more of the we'll start at the war and flash back when we need to.
Mhm.
That probably, I mean, that seems like it would have been probably a more focused, coherent narrative. But I'm holding out to see how this one goes, because if we're just doing the straightforward beat to beat of this of what's going on in the war, that I'm interested in. I'm not sure how long again that they intend for House of Dragon to go, because I don't think that they'll do the whole war this season.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
No.
We'll probably get to like at least Tumbleton or First Bridge. I think at least we'll at least get to one of the battles. Probably at the
We
end.
have to have I think this.
We'll get to one of the battles.
We have to with this episode being.
We
this-
might even have a
series.
battle in the next one with Aegon, because Sunfire has to come out soon, because he keeps talking about it and they keep
We haven't
building
seen
out
him,
Sunfire.
right?
Yeah, we haven't seen
Yeah.
Sunfire, and
I saw
Sunfire
practice.
is going to be a spectacular moment in the show, because he's supposed to be the most spectacular, beautiful dragon in Westeros. So
Little ass dragon.
I'm telling you, I
gonna
want
be
to
like
see
a
how
little
big
ba-
they're going to make him, because
He's
he's supposed to be barely fit for war.
It's gonna be like Dragon Tales. You're just gonna blue dragon come out.
Tails.
He's gonna be
But-
riding it.
Yeah.
Overall,
and
though, I thought that was okay.
as usual, again, the thing about House of Dragons that I prefer over Game of Thrones is that I do feel that like the fantasy elements at least have more weight than they did in Game of Thrones. It did feel that
Well,
like
they're developed actually.
yeah, it felt like in the show Game of Thrones, in the TV show, it was like there was magic, but it often felt it didn't feel like it had much effect
No.
one way or the other.
Very
to the
passive.
story.
Yeah.
The idea of magic.
Very
is-
passive.
Yeah.
Here, at least, like the dragons inform the story, even though they're not taken up front and center. Their presence is felt. They move their existence shapes the political sphere.
Definitely.
It shapes the whole dynamic of the show, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
And they've been
this
using
is-
him sparingly too.
Yeah, it's good because it's like, obviously you can only do so much fantasy with even with HBO's budget.
Right.
So you
They're
got
doing good. I think they're doing good.
We're gonna get are we to both of you guys? Do you think we're gonna get a Game of Thrones style battle though, or is it gonna just be House of Dragons, like full episode?
It's going to be
nothing but
sky and
battle.
land. I think it's going to be on the sky and on the land. You're going to see scenes of dragons fighting in the, because that's how it is in the book.
Yeah.
the first season had some real good battles, so I have faith in this season.
All right, everybody. So that's been the Real Sharks breakdown of season 2, episode 2 of House of Dragon. Oh yeah, I just want to add, I didn't think the twin part was even real. I didn't really care about it at all. I felt like that was just like a climax, just to like have a climax in that episode, was the brothers killing each other. I really didn't care.
Aww.
I didn't.
Poor-
I'm sorry. I thought it
Poor
was
Eric
kinda lame.
brothers.
The Eric brothers. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of lame. But yeah. So this is your host Rob with your host Steve.
Yep.
And Luke.
Nope.
And we'll see you again in Westeros from 20,000 Leagues on the Sea.